Let's be honest, the idea of a tunnel connecting Britain to France is not exactly rocket science. For centuries, Britain has been an island brilliant when you want to avoid Napoleon, but a bit of a faff when you just want some decent French cheese without getting on a ferry. The French, being French, had the idea first. Back in 1802, an engineer called Albert Mathieu Favier thought, why not just dig a tunnel under the water? He even planned for an artificial island in the middle for changing horses. Ambitious, of course nothing happened. We were too busy being suspicious of each other. Then, in the 1880s, we actually started digging. Yes, proper digging with Victorian men in flat caps and enormous moustaches. They got about a mile in from both sides before the British government, in a fit of paranoia, decided the French might use it to send an army through. So they stopped, again. Fast forward to the 1970s. We had another go, and then because it was the 70s and Britain was broke, the government cancelled it, again. It seemed the greatest engineering project in Europe was destined to be nothing more than a few muddy holes and a lot of wasted paperwork. Finally, in 1986, two very important people decided to stop messing about. One was Margaret Thatcher, and the other was François Mitterrand. They met in Canterbury and signed a treaty. This wasn't just a friendly agreement over tea. It was a legally binding document that said, right, we're building this thing, and this time we mean it. In late 1987, the real work began, and when I say work, I mean an epic feat of brute force engineering. On both sides of the channel, enormous tunnel boring machines, or TBMs, were assembled. These weren't just drills, they were gigantic 200-meter-long mechanical worms, each costing millions. The British TBMs were designed to handle the wet, crumbly chalk on our side, while the French ones were built for the more stable geology on theirs. In total, 11 of these metal behemoths chewed their way under the sea, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The noise must have been biblical. At its peak, nearly 15,000 people were working on the project. They weren't just digging. They were lining the tunnel with concrete segments as they went, creating a waterproof tube strong enough to withstand the immense pressure of the sea above. The amount of chalk and soil they removed was immense, enough to create a whole new bit of England. They dumped the spoil from the British side into the sea near Dover, creating a 74-acre nature reserve called Samphire Hoe. On the 30th of October 1990, a British worker named Graham Fagg drilled through the final wall and shook hands with his French counterpart, Philippe Cosette. It was a simple, powerful image broadcast around the world. So how does this 31-mile-long tube actually work? It's not just a road for cars, which is what many people assume. That would be a recipe for disaster. Imagine a breakdown or worse, a pile-up under the sea. No, the solution is much more elegant and involves trains. Lots of them. First, you have the Eurostar, the one you've probably heard of. This is a proper high-speed passenger train that zips you from the centre of London to the centre of Paris in the time it takes to watch a film. You get on at St Pancras, have a snooze and wake up in Paris. No airports, no faffing with luggage, no terrible airline food. It's civilised. The second service is the real workhorse, the Eurotunnel Le Shuttle. This is the clever bit for people who want to take their own car, van or lorry. You drive to the terminal in Folkestone, and instead of getting on a boat, you drive straight onto a train. These trains are enormous double-decker metal boxes on wheels. You park your car inside, and you can either stay with your vehicle or wander into a brighter carriage. The train then hurtles through the tunnel at about 87 miles per hour, and 35 minutes later, you pop out in Calais, ready to drive off onto the French motorway network. It is, without a doubt, the fastest and most ridiculously simple way to cross the channel with a vehicle. One of the most important decisions they made was about safety. The service tunnel, running between the two main rail tunnels, is a lifeline. If there's ever a fire or an incident, passengers can be evacuated into this central tunnel, which has its own fresh air supply. It's a brilliant piece of over-engineering. Then there's the border control. To avoid massive queues on arrival, they invented a system called juxtaposed controls. This means you go through French passport control before you even get on the train in England. So when you arrive in France, you just drive off. No queues, no hassle. And there's a surprising benefit. It's actually good for the planet. Well, better. A journey on the Eurostar from London to Paris generates about 90% less carbon dioxide than taking the equivalent flight. That's a massive difference. Every lorry that goes on the shuttle is one less lorry chugging away on a ferry or clogging up the ports. It's fast, incredibly efficient, and a little bit green. What's not to like? It's a masterpiece of practical thinking. After all the political arguments, the spiraling costs, and the engineering headaches, the big question remains: was the Channel Tunnel a success? If you look at the numbers, the answer is a resounding yes. It completely transformed travel between the UK and Europe. Journeys that once took half a day now take a couple of hours. It has carried over 450 million passengers and moved more than 400 million tons of freight. In fact, a quarter of all goods traded between the UK and the EU passes through it. That's everything from fresh flowers to seafood to car parts to Amazon parcels. It has become a vital economic artery, humming with activity day and night. For the people who live in Kent and northern France, it created thousands of jobs, not just in building it, but in running it and in all the businesses that sprang up around it. It made day trips to Paris and Brussels a realistic prospect for millions of Brits and turned London into an easy weekend destination for Europeans. It brought people closer, fostering a connection that went beyond just trade. Then came Brexit. Suddenly, the seamless, frictionless border the tunnel was designed for had, well, friction. New customs checks, paperwork, and regulations were introduced, threatening to slow everything down. And while there have been challenges, the tunnel has adapted. New border facilities were built, systems were digitized, and trade has continued to flow. The tunnel has proven to be incredibly resilient, a testament to its fundamental importance. It remains the most efficient link we have to our biggest trading partner, a concrete and steel argument for cooperation in a world that seems to be pulling apart. Today, more than 30 years after it opened, the Channel Tunnel stands as one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. It's a symbol of what can be achieved when ambition, engineering prowess, and sheer bloody-mindedness come together. There's talk of new routes, faster trains, and even a second tunnel one day. Whatever the future holds, the Channel has fundamentally changed Britain's relationship with Europe. It proved that we are not just an island, but a nation connected to a continent. And it did so with a simple, powerful, and frankly brilliant idea: putting a train in a tube under the sea. On that bombshell, it's fair to say it was